Game of the week in college football. Game days in Lubbock. That's great. And we're doing this old thing again.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day. It is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, your daily source to stay up to date with the biggest stories in this, the greatest sport on planet Earth. Utah, USC. Which one's more likely to make the playoff? Or are they both equally as likely to make the playoff? And another Power 4 job opening could be coming to a school near you. That's on today's show, which is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. So, I gotta tell you, we have to stop doing this. This can't keep coming up. The level of mental anguish that it bestows upon me to try and wrap my brain around what to do with BYU in a big game is made a whole heck of a lot worse when our friends at FanDuel have the line as Texas Tech. I know the game's in Lubbock. I've been to the great city of Lubbock. I enjoyed my time there. I would absolutely love to go back one day, especially to play that golf course. Gosh, I loved that golf course. It was really fun. I had a great time, and I played well, which always makes me like a course even more. But even though Texas Tech is at home, why does the line have to be around double digits? Our friends at FanDuel do a phenomenal job setting these lines, putting them out, giving you all sorts of stuff to look at and think about. And they're in my head. They, along with the BYU Cougars, are in my head. That line leads me to believe I should come on here and express my profound and deeply abiding love, support, admiration, and outright belief in my Texas Tech Red Raiders. And just a quick note on that. Not every prediction I make is correct. I understand that's how it works. When I'm wrong, I come on here and tell you. Sometimes I happen to be right about a particular prediction, and sometimes I'm so unbelievably right, I'm just pondering whether or not it's one of my top 5 best takes of all time that coming into the year, Texas Tech is the number 1 team in the Big 12. There is no other way to see it right now. Even though BYU is undefeated and Texas Tech is obviously not, in games in which the Red Raiders have had Baron Morton available, they're not just undefeated. They are beating the living crap out of everybody that they are playing. Here are the results this season. I'm throwing out the Arizona State game on the road. I said at the time that I didn't change my perspective of Texas Tech in a major way because Will Hammond is a fun guy to watch as a backup quarterback, but he's a backup. And most backup quarterbacks have the same basic level of play. For a little while, they look like a starter. And they could even win you some games, like he did against Utah on the road, which looks more and more impressive. Over the course of time, however, he will eventually show why he's a backup quarterback. And Hammond did in that game. And they still almost won. But when they've got Baron Morton available, they have beaten teams 67-7, 62-14. Okay, those games don't really count because Oregon State's not good either. 45-14. Okay, Houston, that was in the top 25 until last week, 35-11. Kansas, a respectable team in the Big 12, 42-17. Oklahoma State, 42-0. Baron Morton wasn't even the leading passer in that game. I don't think he actually played. And then against Kansas State last week, a matchup that I and others had tabbed as, hey, watch out, it could be an upset alert, 43-20 on the road. Okay, when they have Baron Morton fully healthy, which is not always the case, they're the best team in the Big 12. And it's pretty darn clear. And they've also got to win against Utah, lest we forget, 34-10. The game was closer than that, but Texas Tech was just significantly better. And why don't you ask Cincinnati how easy it is to go to Rice-Eccles and play? They learned last week the hard way how difficult it is. So on the one hand, I know that. And on the other hand, what is BYU? They're the BYU find a way to win Cougars that time and again have been made the underdog in spots where they wind up winning. They were, I believe, a slight underdog when they went down to Arizona, won the game. They were an underdog in the Holy War at home against BYU, won the game. They have been an underdog, I don't even know how many times, and they just keep finding a way. But the odds makers in this game are trying to get me to jump on board the bandwagon that I created. And while I am riding that Conestoga wagon, playing the Oregon Trail, cruising merrily along, BYU is the river that can tip the wagon over. And so I'm just pausing. I'm just pausing at this point in the week. And I'm just looking at this game going, man, I might not make a pick until late Thursday night. I might wait until the last possible moment. We're going to talk about this game more on the show as the week goes on because it's such an incredible matchup. But that number, just know, in my head, it terrifies me. Because last week, there was a game day matchup where the home team was favored by well over a touchdown, bordering on double-digit points, and Utah beat Cincinnati by what score? Yes, that's right, 45-14. Is that really going to happen? Am I supposed to believe that that's really possible? Because if I'm being completely honest, I can't get to that stage. I cannot look at what BYU's done for the last couple of years and not think that there is some sort of magic with that team and program that you can't always quantify, and that those who are setting the betting lines for particular games just cannot wrap their heads around either. The underlying metrics and things that Vegas looks at or that sharps would see, oh, here's why Texas Tech's a better team and Texas Tech at home and all that sort of stuff. All of that is there, and BYU just finds a way to overcome it over and over again. Yeah, when you look at the numbers, go in a number of different directions. Which passing offense do you trust more? Yeah, that'd be Texas Tech. Which running offense do you trust more? Well, maybe that answers BYU. I don't know. There's a huge edge there. But BYU's got that great defense. Oh, Texas Tech has got the defense to go toe-to-toe with anybody in the Big 12 and probably beyond as well, with the best combination of edge rushers that this conference has by far. By far. Is BYU's offensive line ready for that? We're going to find out. But the stakes in this game cannot be overstated, because the Big 12's path to getting two teams into the playoff, heck, maybe even three, as I'll talk about in the next segment, it relies on the outcome of this game. If BYU wins, that spoils things. That spoils things in a pretty meaningful way. You could see the committee go full anti-Big 12. The door would be open for them to do it. Doesn't guarantee they would, but the door would open if Texas Tech winds up at 10-2 and Utah is 10-2 and BYU's 12-0 going to the Big 12 championship game. If they were to then win and be 13-0, boy, I don't know that you want to think about that. Let's see what the committee does first before I start dogging on them. Their first rankings come out later today as this show airs. So, Cougar fans, Texas Tech fans, drop your thoughts in the YouTube comments below. How are you feeling right now at this point in the week? You let me know. I want to hear from you. So, Utah, USC, into the playoffs. Those are not crazy propositions. First, this episode brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA's back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score the next bucket to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. And my best bets took a step back last week. A 2-3 performance, I feel robbed. I feel robbed once again. It's 3 times this year I've been deprived of a winning week because of just complete and utter insanity. But if you think I'm about to go on a cold streak, you can go fade the picks at FanDuel. If You think I'm going to heat back up, which is certainly what I anticipate this week. You can go ride the picks at FanDuel. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com, sign up, and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. If you think I planned these shows by accident, you're so incredibly wrong. When the Pac-12, RIP, imploded because of USC and many other things, the rivalry that had started to manifest between Utah and USC was rather profound. It was going to continue to be great. You had contrasting styles. You had big-time matchups. You had a little bit of back and forth on and off the field. It was starting to get good. And then, of course, they went their separate directions. But let me start with Utah here. Utah is a family's dog. Like your friend's family has got the dog that overall is okay. But if you don't quite approach it in the right way, it's gonna bite you. Or it's gonna snap at you. It's gonna bark really loudly. If you make it feel like it is not in a safe place, it's going to get very defensive very quickly. There's another animal that I just really don't like that I could mention on the show, but I'm not going to do that. So I'm going with the dog metaphor here. Utah, after losing to BYU, has been, as that dog, backed into the corner, and now they are not all bark and no bite. Utah in the last 2 weeks, since losing that game, which absolutely ripped the collective heart of Utes fans out of their chest for a second straight year, Utah against Colorado and Cincinnati, two different caliber of opponents. They looked about the same against Utah at Rice-Eccles because the Buffs lost 53-7. That's one thing. I saw that one coming. I did not see last week coming. Good vibes for Utah here. Good game day in town, ranked opponent, undefeated in the Big 12, Cincinnati. And the final score goes 45-14. Everything went well for Utah in this game. Early on, it looked like Cincinnati was hanging around. Things were going their way. Nope. Devin Dampier just has to have 200 yards passing, and the offense will do enough, and they will run the ball. And when Utah gets into this sort of headspace, they're just a dangerous football team. Their last three opponents, they're on a bye this week, are at Baylor, Kansas State, at Kansas. There's no guarantee Utah will win all those games. Lose one, you're done in the college football playoff. But if you win all three, should 10-2 Utah get into the playoff? My answer is the consideration should be there. Last year, BYU didn't get that benefit of the doubt. I think that was wrong. I do. Not that they shouldn't have been, not that they should have automatically been in the playoff, but they had a case. They had an argument. Utah will have a case. Utah will have an argument, so long as Cincinnati keeps winning. If you're a Utah fan, you want the Bearcats to win every game from here on out. Heck, you might love nothing more than for the Bearcats to wind up at 10-2 and with only one loss in the Big 12 because their other losses to Nebraska wind up in the Big 12 championship game. To be able to look and say, hey, see that team that's playing for a conference championship? Or better yet, if Cincinnati were to win the Big 12, beating BYU or Texas Tech in that spot, and you could say, hey, we've got a 45-14 win over the conference champs and a 3-point loss on the road to BYU. There are other losses. This is one of the fun things about this year's selection of teams that the playoff committee is going to have to evaluate, is they're going to have to weigh some pretty notable losses on resumes that don't look good. What do you do with Alabama losing to Florida State? Florida State won their first ACC game over the weekend in 2 years. What do you do with that game? How does it punish Alabama? What if they get upset somehow by Auburn with interim head coach DJ Durkin, who's looking for a signature win? What if they somehow lose to LSU? You know, what if that happens? They have too many quality wins, but do they get a home playoff game? I don't think they should. If they go 11-1, sure, I'll give you that. But, go to the SEC championship game and all. But what if they don't have a conference championship? You look at Notre Dame. Notre Dame lost to Miami. That doesn't look as good. Miami and Notre Dame currently have 2 losses each. Miami beat Notre Dame head-to-head. The Hurricanes' losses, though, are much worse than Notre Dame's losses. How does that get evaluated? I'm not entirely certain. So going forward, these are the sorts of conversations that are going to be had. Utah's lost 3 points on the road at BYU might hold up very well. But what does the committee do? How many of them actually watched, paid close attention to the game against Texas Tech, which was closer than the final score indicated? But does that matter? Or does it not matter? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how this goes. But Utah as a playoff team is a thought I can absolutely entertain. Automatic? No, I don't think so. I think that Utah and Notre Dame are in the same sort of camp. You got to win your next 3 games. You got to look impressive doing it. Wind up at 10-2, and then get some help along the way. Now, as I always say, help is often given to those in college football that hold their own. So hold your own. Be on a 5-game win streak. Throw a couple more dominant wins in there. Utah is a good football team. Really, really good. I don't think they're locked to the playoff. So then you get to USC, who plays Northwestern this week. Last time out, of course, they beat Nebraska on the road. They play on a short week the Northwestern Wildcats, who are a sneaky, interesting team. David Braun, I think, has saved his job there in Evanston, and good for him. Can they go on the road and beat USC? No, I don't think so. I don't believe that they can. But USC, to me, is a far more surefire win the rest of your games you're into the playoff than Utah because of what remains, because of the wins they'd have. And neither loss for USC looks like a disaster. Illinois, they won last week, pulled away from Rutgers eventually, and USC lost on the road by 2, and Illinois is probably going to end the year 9-3 and ranked in the top 25. The other losses to Notre Dame, who everybody's got ranked, because Notre Dame's a really good team. They just had a couple tough losses early in the year. So that's what USC's resume looks like. You combine that with the fact that their remaining schedule is Northwestern, and then Iowa the following week, and then at Oregon and UCLA. So Northwestern, UCLA, they shouldn't have a problem. Rivalry games could get crazy. I think they'll be fine. Iowa, good team. Don't know if they're winning at the Coliseum. At Oregon, if USC goes and wins that game and is 10-2, I don't think you can leave them out of the college football playoff. I don't know how the committee would possibly do that. And if you're worried that the committee has big brand bias, and I think last year's ultimate college football playoff selection group of 12 teams puts that at the very least in question, well, then you'd probably feel like USC is going to get the benefit of the doubt. Or maybe they don't have that sort of brand power anymore. Bottom line, though, you can't with USC's resume, with a road win at Nebraska last week, who's not a great team, but is a good team. The win over Michigan continues to hold up well over time. The Wolverines, I think, will be 9-3 and in the top 25, and they beat them by 18 points. If they were to win their next 4 games, they'd get in. If they lose any of them, they're probably out. I don't think 9-3. I don't want a 9-3 team to ever make the college football playoff because I don't want that NFL style leeway to be given to teams and still have a chance to go win the national championship. It's just not how I'm wired as a college football fan. So I think between these two, there's some similarities. But with Oregon on the road still on there and Utah not having a team that is ranked in the top 25, nor should any of them be ranked. There's not even an argument. It's not like they're playing, in Iowa or Washington before they finally got in the AP poll this past week, where you look at it, you go, okay, that's an unranked team, but boy, it's a really good team. If you're Utah, you need Cincinnati to win the rest of their games. You need them to win the Big 12. And if you could hold a 31-point win over the Big 12 champions, over the committee's head on your resume, yep, that'd be compelling. And that'd be a path to the Big 12 getting 3 teams in. I don't know that I like how this shakes out for the Big 12. But for USC, yeah, I think the Trojans, if they win their next 4 games, they're in. I don't think there's any way you can keep them out. Now, if you throw a road win at Oregon into what is already a good resume. So, Utah, USC. Playoff hopes, very real, better for the Trojans. Coming to a coordinator or head coach near you, an opportunity to be a head coach in the Big Ten. First, this episode brought to you by Game Time. We're all happy the college football is here. All the games I'm talking about this week on the show, if you want to go, Game Time's the ticketing service that you want to use. Seriously, because it can be a battle to get tickets to your favorite events, college football or beyond, with things like endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. I'm telling you, Game Time isn't like that. Game Time's the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I've used Game Time several times in the last few years, including just a few weeks ago, to see a show in Vegas. Going to a sporting event in Vegas in a couple weeks. Got my tickets on Game Time. Process to get them on my phone, really easy. Compared to other ticketing websites, I saved money on Game Time for the exact same seats. Great deal, great service. Game Time's the way to go. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. We need to keep an eye on East Lansing. Michigan State, at most, can win 3 conference games. They're probably going to win 2. Last year, they won 3. It is going in the wrong direction for Jonathan Smith. I understood the hire. I understood why he left Oregon State and the situation in Corvallis. Could a reunion be possible? I'm just throwing it out there. I don't think you can rule it out. Here's the problem. Last week, quarterback of the future, Aiden Childs, wasn't the starter because he wasn't necessarily the best option to give the Spartans a chance to win. That's not good. That is not good. Michigan State is going in the wrong direction. They are 0-6 in Big Ten play. Their only Power 4 win. This season started 3-0. They beat Western Michigan. They beat Boston College in double overtime or triple overtime, something. Youngstown State, and ever since then, 6 straight losses. Most of them by double digits. Since Big Ten play began, Michigan State has lost by 14 points, 11 points, 25 points, 25 points, 11 points, and 3 points this last week at Minnesota. A game they had a chance to win and found a way to not do it. That would have been really big. But in year 2, here's the thing with Jonathan Smith and this Spartans program. This season didn't have to be one where you were pushing to be a college football playoff team. But you have turned Spartans fans into basketball fans once again because they're over it. And they've been over it. And there's nothing that I watch with Michigan State. And yes, I have indeed done that. Only because it's my job. It's not the best way to spend time. But there's nothing about that team, this team for Michigan State, that I have a lot of good things to say about. In year 1, I can write off a lot as it's your first year. I'm going to give you some leeway there. And Michigan State last year won 5 games. I think that was a solid first year. This is a sizable step back. Now, will the Spartans pull the trigger and say, yeah, we're done. We're going to enter ourselves into the coaching carousel? Maybe they wouldn't. Are you really going to tolerate or accept a potential 0-9 run in Big Ten play, a 9-game losing streak to end the year? Maybe it's too much. Maybe they don't want to pay the money. Maybe they think there are too many other big-time schools that are going after coaches, and so they don't know how competitive they'll be able to be on the market for the top candidates. I don't know, if you could somehow get James Franklin. Again, I've heard that sometime this week he could get announced as the Virginia Tech head coach. If you could find a way to swing him back from there to stay in the Big Ten, sure, go for it. Franklin to me can be a stabilizing force at a certain spot. You know, I've talked about him as a Wisconsin head coach and why that would fit. I think Virginia Tech could be a fit as well. But the 3 remaining games are Penn State, Iowa, Maryland. Look, those are not unwinnable games, especially in your second year. But my biggest problem with Jonathan Smith in year 2 is it doesn't feel like there's been any sort of progression forward. The results tell you there's been a progression backwards. And the identity that he had with his teams at Oregon State, it just isn't there. It's not that, are the resources not there? It should at least be better than this. UCLA was a fun story for an hour, and it was great. And what they should not have been able to go into East Lansing and beat you by 25. That was an interim head coach, a first-time OC. You're in your second year, way more veteran in college football. This is just not going well. They're not competitive enough with good teams. They're taking steps backward. The quarterback of the future is regressing in real time in this very season. This is not what it's supposed to look like when it's going well. Now, if you have a fundamental rule as an AD, I'm giving a coach 3 years, or else who are we going to get? Don't want to turn to Auburn, firing a coach every couple of years. Okay, fine. I get it. I just don't know what Michigan State's going to be able to do in this offseason that they clearly didn't accomplish in the last offseason. Trench play, particularly the O-line, has been a hallmark of every Jonathan Smith team. His Washington teams when he was the offensive coordinator, his Oregon State teams when he got the Beavs going, because the run game is so essential to any pro-style under center offense, which is the philosophy he runs. I don't think that that's what needs to change. But the personnel has to be better. It's not. It's just straight up not better. So if they lose their next 3 games, I'd watch for them to get fired. And there's an opening in Corvallis. I'm just saying. It worked once before. Maybe Oregon State fans would be too petty. I don't know. But what I do know is that this is moving in the wrong direction very quickly, and in a cycle where you have got LSU and Florida and Arkansas and Penn State and Virginia Tech all available amongst others. You could add Michigan State into the fold. Let me throw this one at you. Do you know the name Rob Auric? Auric? I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I might not be. Yeah, you should, because that's a rising star in the coaching ranks. He is the defensive coordinator for San Diego State University. The Aztecs this year have 1 loss to Washington State. They have no losses in conference play. And Boise State got smacked by Fresno State over the weekend. Fresno was shut out by San Diego State at Snapdragon a couple of weeks ago. That's their stadium. The remaining schedule, pretty difficult actually, if you follow the Mountain West as I do. At Hawaii this week. That's tough. Boise State at home, big game. San Jose State at home, sneaky tough game. At New Mexico, pretty tough game. Jason Eck, we know, good football coach. Far be it from me to forget to remind you, the college football public, there will be a group of 5 team in the playoff. They will take somebody's spot. Someone will be mad about it somewhere, and all they'll be able to do is yell at the sky. For the last couple of weeks, I've been mentioning San Diego State. The Mountain West picture is looking more and more like it is the Aztecs, and who's going to be able to knock them off? Nobody's done it yet. They've got 4 games left, but they are unbeaten in league play. Would they automatically get the nod over the American champ? Maybe not, because they don't have a quality non-conference win. But when you go unbeaten in conference play, if you win the conference championship and you're 12-1, that's going to be really hard to overlook. And it is not the San Diego State offense that's getting them there. It is the San Diego. It's good enough. The San Diego State defense is elite. And Sean Lewis is doing a heck of a job. And he's hired very well. But just keep an eye on the Aztecs, please. As this can, when the first playoff rankings come out, I don't expect San Diego State to be a part of it. But if they beat Boise and they beat Hawaii, who's having an above 500 season, I'm just telling you, don't be surprised if the Aztecs pop up in somebody or someone's top 20 or something's top 25 as the years go, or as the weeks go on. Maybe mine. Okay, it's late. I should get to bed and stop recording. But hope you enjoyed the show. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. And until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.